Hello and welcome to our 8th session where we are supposed to start discussing about the cameras, but before that I want to tell you that just today Unreal 5.6.0 preview version has been released, and as we work on this I want to also show you how you can update Unreal Engine as and when the new features are added. So to do this I am now going to launch the Epic Games launcher, and here I am going to come into the library, and in the engine versions actually you will see an prompt here saying that you have a new version. So as of now, since I have already clicked on it, you are not seeing it. So I will click on the plus icon here, and here by default it goes to the previous version, but if I click on this arrow you can now see here 5.6.0 preview is available. So I will select this and then I will click on the install option here. Now it says that this release is for testing only. I will click on install now, and the folder here, choose a folder which has at least around 100 GB of space. If your C drive doesn't have it, you can click on the browse, come to your PC, and in the D drive I am going to come into this Unreal folder and I am going to select it. So instead of C drive I am choosing my D drive. It's always better that this D drive is an SSD drive. Then the path will be D Unreal UE 5.6, and the most important thing here is you have the option button here. Click on the option button here. You have core component, starter content is on, template and future pack, engine source is on, and this MetaHuman creator core data, this is very important for us. I will enable it. Now other options you need not enable it. See, this is going to take 34 GB space. This is just enough. But in my machine, since I have sufficient space, I am also enabling this editor symbols for debugging Android, iOS, Linux and tvOS. And when I enable everything, see, my total space it is taking is 120 GB. So as of now, since I have the space, I have enabled it. So the download size is around 37 GB, and now I am going to click on apply. So once I click apply here, everything is now ready, and now I am going to click on this install button. So now once I click on this install button, see, the download is going to start, and this is a very long process. It has to download 37 GB and then the installation has to start. You may have to wait for about half an hour or 1 hour. Now as the installation is going on, by the time the installation is completed, let us discuss and understand the basics of a camera. Now what is the purpose of a camera? The purpose of the camera is to record the image that we are seeing through our eyes and reproduce it on a television screen or in a cinema theater on the wide screen or on your mobile phone. So before we understand how a camera records the image, let us first understand how we actually see the image. So to understand the basics, see, whatever image you are seeing, whatever image of mine you are seeing, so all these images are nothing but the sensation of human eye to a particular wavelength of electromagnetic radiation. Means in this world there are a lot of electromagnetic radiation, and what is an electromagnetic radiation means? So I have put up an image here. So if you see the image here, this is nothing but, see, this blue represents the electric wave and red represents the magnetic wave, and these two waves will be running perpendicular to each other. And now here you can see that the electric wave starts from 0, reaches a peak, comes down, reaches the peak on the other side and again comes down, and this we call it as a wave. And the distance between this 0 and this 0, or the distance between this peak and this peak, see, this distance or this distance, we call it as the wavelength. This is called as a wavelength. And now in nature you have various radiations running. Say for example, I am now showing you the range of electromagnetic radiations we have in nature. And here are some gamma rays that you are seeing here. See, I can show you some gamma rays here. These rays, this we call it as the frequency, and below is the wavelength. Frequency is number of cycles per second. That is, when I showed you the wave, see in this wave, in 1 second, how many times the value rises to the peak, comes down and reaches here. How many wavelength a wave travels in 1 second, we call it as the frequency. Say for example, the electric current that we use in India, we call it as 50 hertz. 50 hertz means our electric current has 50 cycles of variation per second. Coming back to our spectrum here, the electromagnetic radiation starting with frequency of 10 to the power of 24, 10 to the power of 22, 20, these radiation with very high frequency. When the frequency is very high, the wavelength will be very small. And these radiations, we use it for various other purposes. And then when the range comes to 10 to the power of 18, or when the range starts from 10 to the power of minus 10, these rays we call it as the X-rays. Then you have the ultraviolet rays with wavelength of 10 to the power of minus 8 meter, and after that a particular range of electromagnetic radiation starting from 400 nanometers. We also called it as 4000 Armstrong unit. From 400 nanometer to 700 nanometer, whatever radiation we are going to see, if this radiation comes and falls on our eye, we are going to sense it as light. So light is a human sensation to a particular wavelength of light. For example, if 4000 nanometer light comes and falls on our eye, we are going to sense it as violet color. If 480 nanometer wavelength light comes and falls on it, we are going to sense it as blue. If 5200 nanometer wavelength light comes and falls on our eye, we sense it as yellow. If 7000 Armstrong unit comes and falls on our eye, we are going to sense it as red. And if all this radiation at a time, if it comes and falls on our eye, we are going to sense it as white. If there is no radiation at all, for example in the night, in pitch black, when none of this radiation reaches our eye, we are going to sense the image as black. So the image that we are seeing is a human sensation for a particular wavelength of light. In our eye, what happens is, whatever image is present in front of our eye, the image through a lens is projected on a screen, and this screen we call it as the retina, which is at the back here. It is projected on this retina through this lens, and this retina through the optic nerve, it is going to measure this image and send to our brain as signal. What is the value that the eye is going to measure is, in our electromagnetic radiation, there will be two values that our eye will recognize and store is. One is the amplitude of the wave. The amplitude of the wave means, say here, the height of this wave. So now if the intensity of this wave is very high, this amplitude will be very large. Say for example, in case of light, we measure it as wattage. So if it is 100 watts, it appears to us as white. If it is 0 watts, it appears to our eye as black. This we call it as the amplitude. So our eye recognizes what is the amplitude of light at every point of your screen. See, you are seeing my image on the screen. To see my image, the very first necessity is you need a source light. If I am standing in dark night without any light, you are not going to see me. The very first thing is you need a source light. Here I am using an LED light, and that LED light is coming and falling on me, and the light is getting reflected. Most of the image we see in real life is coming from the reflection principle. So now when this light gets reflected, for example, in some areas like on this nose top or on this forehead, whatever light you are giving, all the light is coming back. So because of that, if you are giving 100 watts, you are getting complete 100 watts in these areas of the image. Whereas if you take my hair area, the property of my hair area is, even if you give 100 watts light, the hair area is going to absorb all the light, and the return light that the camera or your sensor is receiving is 0. So that's why this area is black. In this area I have 100 watts light. This area I am getting 40 watts light, and from here I am getting 0 watts light, and in some other areas, brighter areas here, from this area I am getting 80 watts light, and the eyebrows here, from here I will be getting just 10 watts light. And because I am getting different amount of light from different areas, you are able to see my image. So how the image is recorded? The image is recorded based on the amount of light coming from different areas of your screen. In your eye, what amount of light makes you feel that as white? Because nothing can be brighter than white. Okay, so if for 100 watts, if your eye starts feeling the white color, if the light becomes 200 watts also, it will be white color only. You doesn't have anything more than white. Similarly, if 0 watts is black, or say for example if 10 watts is black, 0 watts will also be black. So in our eye, between the black and the white, between the darkest area and between the brightest area, the brightest area will have a value and the darkest area will have a value. So if our eye can sense 100 watts as white, then we call this as the eye sensitivity. Say for example, different animals have different sensitive values. Say for example, for a human eye, to recognize white as white, I need at least 100 watts light. Whereas for an owl, in the night when it is seeing, just for 2 watts light, it is going to recognize it as white. The 2 watts light for a human eye is recognized as dark gray color, whereas for an owl, it is recognized as white. This we call it as the sensitivity. How much sensitive is our eye brain, and it changes from animal to animal. And similarly, when we come to a camera, here we call this as the sensitivity of, previously we were using films, and in films we used to measure this sensitivity with a term called as ASA or ISO. And today in digital, we use the same terminology and we are going to measure this sensitivity using ASA or ISO. ASA stands for American Standard Association and ISO stands for International Standard Organization. We used to call this as slow speed film, medium speed film, high speed film. So this value we call it as the sensitivity. Remember, when we are seeing an image, the very first term we have to understand is what is our sensitivity. And now, based on our sensitivity, the amount of light that reaches our brain has to be controlled. To give you an example, in our eye, we have a part called as iris. Now this iris is a round diametrical shaped opening. It is a spherical opening. So in the night when you are driving the car, or in the night when you are seeing something, this iris will be fully open and it allows maximum light to reach your brain. However, in a hot sun when you are moving, then this iris will close down and reduce the intensity of the image, because what happens is, for our eye to see the image correctly, a white area should be recognized with 100 watts light. Now in a bright sunlight, if from a white area 1000 watts light is coming, then the iris will automatically close down and it will reduce it to 100 watts, and it is going to project only 100 watts light to our eye. Now similarly in the night, if you are getting just 30 watts or 40 watts light from a white area, then automatically this closed iris will fully open up and allow all the light inside, so that you can see the white area as pure white and black area as pure black. On a hot sunny day, you see a morning show, and in the afternoon when you come out of the theater, you can see all the audience are holding their eyes half closed like this. They would have half closed, they cannot open the eye fully at all. The reason why they cannot open the eye fully is, when you are sitting in the theater, our iris will be fully open, and suddenly when you come into the sun, it gets overexposed, and to control it, since the iris is not closing, we close our eyelid. Now similarly, in a hot sun, if you are traveling outside and you are in a hot sun, you are seeing a bright light, and suddenly you enter inside the home, everything appears dark for a few seconds, because your eye is adjusted to hot sun and your iris has completely closed down, and once you enter a dark area, the iris has to open up, and to open up it may take a few seconds. Until that time, you will be seeing everything in your room completely pitch dark. So in our eye, this amount of light is controlled by a device called as iris. Say for example, whatever image I am seeing in my eye, I want to record it in a camera, means the very first thing I need is a lens. Why I need a lens? Whatever image is front of the camera, I want to project that image on a screen. So to project it on the screen, in the camera, the first device I use is a lens, and behind the lens, to measure this light and store it, we use a sensor. These sensors are called as, say for example, in your mobile phone you have CMOS sensors, Sony CMOS sensors, and what are these sensors is, it is going to measure light and which area has 100 watts light, which area has 30 watts light, which area has 20 watts light. It is going to record it and store it. This we call it as the sensor. So we have the lens, we have the sensor, and now just like our eye has an iris to control the intensity, in our camera we have a device what we call as the aperture. The aperture is a diaphragm at the center of the lens, using which I change the diameter of the light that is passing through the lens, and when I change this diameter, the intensity of the light is going to change, and this is like a valve. I can control how much light is reaching from my image or from my object to the sensor. I can control it using apertures. By now this installation job is now over. You can see that 5.60 preview has been installed, and now I want this to be my default or my current Unreal version. You can see this is marked yellow, indicating that this is the current version. So, I will come here and choose this option set current. So, when I choose set current, this will be the current version. Now, you can see here all our projects that we have done is in 5.5 version. So, normally if I double click it, it may open in 5.5.4. So, to change it to 5.6 version, say I am working on this broadcast underscore studio. To change it to 5.6, I will right click here and click on the option show in folder. So, I will come into the folder. So, in D Unreal project broadcast underscore studio, you have this U project file. I will right click here and click on show more options here, and you have one option here, switch Unreal Engine version. So, I can just click here, instead of 5.5, I will select 5.6 and click OK. And now, I will come back to the launcher and I will just close the launcher once, and I am going to launch it again. I will come back to library, and you can now see this is in version 5.6. So, now if I double click and launch this project, it will open in 5.6. So, let us double click and launch 5.6 preview version for the first time. It is asking for some firewall permission. So, I will click allow here, allow. You can now see here it is launching in Unreal Editor 5.6.0 version. It has to now recompile all these 15,000 shaders. This is going to take some time, you have to wait. Okay, now it is launched, and immediately you can see here the entire user interface, there is a huge change here. See, you can see here you have this viewport related, all this transaction, rotate, scale mode, everything is put into this, and you have this selection, rotate and scale, and you have global and local axis here. I will set it to global. You have snapping, and you have snapping, surface, location, rotation, everything is placed into one single icon, and you have surface offset option, and on the perspective which was on the left side has come here, and you can see the camera speed control here, and the lit which was on the screen here has come here. You can see the visibility icon here, and you can see the mouse sensitivity. A new settings is provided over here with open viewport preferences. So, you can see here, I will close this, and you can restore 4 layouts. So, I can just convert this into 4 layouts like this, or I can switch to single layout. So, this was already present in the old version also. So, there is some changes in this entire menu, and as we work, we are going to explore that one by one. Basically, now what has happened is it has opened the My Studio level. Actually, now every time I launch it, I doesn't want My Studio to open. I have to come to content drawer, and in content in my levels, I had created this My Studio with characters. I will double click to open this, and once I open this, so here I have the center camera, I have the left camera, I am missing the right camera. In content drawer, I will come into content drawer, sequences, and when I double click and open this my first sequence, and then I will come here in the sequencer, I will click here, and I will come to my first sequence, and now you can see the sequencer has opened. Now you can see this cinematic right is also available. So, these were the 3 cameras that we added in our previous session. So, now I am going to select the cinematic center camera. I will first of all come into perspective. So, now you can see the cameras are placed on the top in this version. So, I am going to select cine camera underscore center. So, this is the camera that I am going to work. So, here I will have an eject button here. So, to come out of this, I have to click on this eject button. So, these are some of the changes that has been done in version 5.6. I will come into perspective, and instead of default viewport, I will select cinematic viewport. So, when I select cinematic viewport, and in this cinematic viewport, I will come into perspective here, and I will select cine camera center. Remember, in previous version I could directly come here and change the view, but here I have to press the eject button, and I have to come here, I have chosen cinematic view, and then I have to again press cine camera underscore center to come into the view. I will close the sequencer as of now, I doesn't need it. So now you can see that my visuals, whatever you are seeing here, this is blurred. Now what I will do is, with this cine camera underscore center selected, in the details panel, if I scroll down here, the first option I have is transform, then you have current camera setting, and in this you have look at tracking setting, I will set it later. Then you have overscan, this we will set it later, and if you come down, you have one option here called as the focus setting. So just like we do focusing in our regular camera, now I have to focus this object. So in focus method, you have various focus method. You have do not override, manual, tracking, and disable. I have 4 options here. So if I disable it, see, automatically it will be focused. It will always remain focused. Wherever I place the camera, it remains focused. Whereas if I change this to manual, now I can manually set the focus distance in centimeter. So here I can rotate and move it and set the focus. See, as I move it, you can see the focus is changing and it is getting adjusted. Now one thing is, when you are doing this focus, to clearly know that this object is focused, you are provided with a focus plane. If I enable this focus plane now, you can now see a purple screen appearing here, and as I change the distance, you can see that purple screen is going back or coming front. See, this is moving. See, I can see this purple screen moving, and when this purple screen is moving, I can exactly bring it, I can just move it a little forward so that there is a slight difference in distance. So I will focus to this male actor nose, and then I will switch this off. So now our 2 actors are focused. So once I have done the focusing, I will go to file. For my next level, I am going to go here and click on save current level as, and in content my level, I am going to call this as my studio underscore with cameras, and I am going to save a new level. Now once I save the new level, if you come to content my level, you will have only one file here. See, my studio with camera. I need this build data. See, the lighting, everything has changed because there is no build data for this. What I have to do is, I have to come to build, and I am going to choose this option build all levels. So when I click on build all levels, so this level will be built again. Okay, now we have an error here, fail to initialize SWAMP, check to make sure you have the right version of SWAMP installed. So when I get this message I am getting because I have changed this from version 5.5 to 5.6, and there is some problem with this SWAMP agent. I will click OK. So now we have an error, and I want to solve this error in a separate video. So I will make this error solving as a separate video in the next video. With this, I am now going to complete this session where we explored about cameras and the basics of the camera, and we also upgraded our Unreal Engine from 5.5 to 5.6. So whenever you do an upgrade, you start getting errors like what you saw about SWAMP agent just now. So how are we going to solve it? I am going to show it in the next session, and let us after that continue with the other camera basics. We are going to understand different types of camera sensors in our next session. Thank you.